All right, welcome back, Vile Maxim, Tommy Kane. We have some news for you guys. Today we're going to talk about how Zohran Mamdani won the mayoral election in New York City and why that's important. We're also going to talk about Candace Owens going on Piers Morgan and just absolutely blowing my mind. I have not agreed with anything that Candace Owens has said in years. And I was a little bit blown away by a lot of the stuff that she said. Also disagreed still with some things that she said. But interesting stuff. There was definitely some things that she mentioned that kind of blew my mind. Anyway, that being said, we're also going to talk about oil and gas prices. And I've got a friend of mine who has decided to come on later on and actually have a discussion with me regarding oil and gas prices. And I'd say he's pretty much an expert on the subject. He's worked in the field for his entire life. So I'm going to get his views on a couple of things regarding gas and oil and where we are with that. So anyway, let's take a look at Zohran Mamdani winning an election.
We made history. In the words of Nelson Mandela, it always seems impossible until it is done. My friends, we have done it.
That's a name and face you're going to get to know. In a stunning upset, 33-year-old state assemblyman Zohran Mamdani has declared victory over former Governor Andrew Cuomo in the New York City Democratic mayoral primary. While no candidate has yet secured a majority in the first round of the ranked choice election, Mamdani's early lead over Cuomo has all but solidified his
43.5% over 36.4%. Now, guys, what this is a reflection of is not that people love Zohran Mamdani. It has almost nothing to do with Zohran Mamdani, although I'm sure there are some people in New York City who liked him and liked his views and so on and so forth, as there would be any candidate. But for this is not a victory. This is a butthole pounding, okay? This is an absolute destruction, okay? Like, he shred the doors off of Andrew Cuomo. And what that's from is because, as many of you know, it wasn't very long ago, about a little over a week ago, when 5 to 6 million Americans stood in protest in over 2,000 cities and towns across the country to basically protest Trump and his policies and not even so much his policies, but his decision to continuously defy the courts, to send military into our own cities and towns, spreading propaganda about cities being under siege and all this type of stuff. And then on top of that, pushing the big, beautiful bill, which, dramatically cuts Medicaid and many other things in it, including removing the power of the courts over him. And I mean, just one thing after another, letting Elon Musk go in there and just take an axe to like our government programs, fire millions of hundreds of thousands of vets that were working in government, and just so on and so on and so on and so on. Letting food starve to death, his repeated helping of Israel and all this stuff during times when Israel is at a point now where it can be questioned whether maybe they've gone too far. That's another whole debate that I'm not ready to have yet today. But all of these things and all of these protests that happen and all of these people who have repeatedly, time and time again, have been upset with Trump and what he's been doing lately. This is what we're seeing. This overwhelming support for Zohran Mamdani is just it's a window into what's going to happen in the midterms. And this isn't anything out of the ordinary. In fact, if you go back in history and you remember when George Bush took office, George Bush Jr., not Sr., but it was a predominant. The Republicans had the presidency, the House, the Senate, and the courts. That's happened a few times in history. There was times when it happened with Democrats as well. But in the time that it happened with George Bush Jr., the same thing happened. The midterms came around the corner, and people overwhelmingly voted Democratic. And George Bush Jr. was nowhere near as unhinged as Donald Trump. Nowhere near. He was not bombing countries without the approval of Congress. He was not, instructing the military to go into cities and govern protests, I guess you could say. George Bush didn't do any of that stuff, and yet there was a massive backlash just to the fact that there was Republican, all Republican House and Senate, all Republican court with a Republican president, and it resulted in a wave of blue across the board, basically voting in favor of people on the left. And that's what you're seeing already in this mayoral election.
Victory in Cuomo last night basically conceded to Mamdani. We'll get more results in the days ahead, but it is a seismic outcome. And joining us now to help
it is a shellacking.
Let's make sense of it. President of the National Action Network and host of MSNBC's Politics Nation, Reverend Al Sharpton, the Rev. Of course, you've been so central in many ways to this primary process. But as we talked at the top of the show, this is a huge upset. Cuomo, of course, comes from a famous Democratic family, was governor just a couple years back. This was viewed as a political comeback for him, maybe even a stepping stone back into even higher office. And he didn't just lose. He lost significantly, by far more than anyone would have anticipated, even as we did see that Mamdani had the tailwinds and was closing strong. Give us your assessment here. What should we read out of this result last night?
I think that clearly Mamdani did much better than anyone could have predicted. He seemed to go into the early voting stage with a momentum, but I don't think even he would have thought it would have ended this way. So it was a stunning victory. At the same time, many felt that by Cuomo not making a lot of appearances, not being accessible, worked against him. And in many ways, you saw Mamdani
He thought he had it in the bag. Andrew Cuomo thought he had it in the bag. He literally was like, there's no way that they're going to vote for this guy over me, who's got Bernie Sanders style politics. There's no way that that's going to happen. He didn't even think he needed to try. And then he got boot kicked right in the face.
Everywhere. And last Saturday, he was at our National Action Network, and he made challenges he will have now is that you have New York Times saying he's not qualified. You're going to a broader base of voters, and will some of the older voters, even in the black community and
Really? We're going to talk about how he's not qualified. We're going to talk about that. Really? So meanwhile, and the people who are saying that he's unqualified, we know where that's coming from. It's definitely not people on the left. It's people on the right. The same people that support Donald Trump, who has never did anything political in his life, has absolutely no experience in law or governing, and then went and hired people like Kash Patel to lead the FBI and Pete Hegseth to lead the military, a Fox News reporter. But we're going to talk about Mamdani's inexperience. Come on, guys.
Latino community come out and vote for him when you have Eric Adams, the incumbent mayor, on the ballot, who still has a strong base in the black community and in some of these communities. And what happens with Jewish voters, where Mamdani, right or wrong, has been called anti-Semitic. So it's going to be a very interesting fall election. I think he made history last night. The question is whether or not it can stick with a general election. And when
now, I don't know if Mamdani is anti-Semitic. What I have seen, and this is very, very, very strange. Well, it's not strange, but it is scary. is we have been dealing with a situation where the right and the left all over TikTok and social media and Facebook seem to be getting along around one issue, and that's their disdain for Jews. That's not good. That's very, very, very bad. There was a reason why World War II and Adolf Hitler, and during that time, there was a reason why people stood by and allowed Adolf Hitler to do what he did to Jewish people. It was because there was years of basically subhumanizing them. And when you have people on the right that are like, you know, oh, I'm tired of America's support for Israel. And then you have people on the left that are like, we're sick of Israel and their genocide of Gaza. You now have both people on the right and the left unifying around their hatred towards Jewish people. And this is very, very bad and could lead to some serious problems for Jewish people. And we need to put a cap on this because it's a little out of control and it's kind of crazy. And that needs to stop. Now, I don't know enough about Mamdani really to know whether or not he is anti-Semitic, and I will look further into that. But what I can say is that him winning this election is a good sign in terms of Democrats taking over in the midterms and trying to put a balance of power in the White House. That's really all I take out of it from its positivity. Now, in terms of doing enough research on him to have an opinion on whether or not he's anti-Semitic or not, or what some of his views are, or if they go a little too far, I'd have to look into a lot of that stuff, and I don't have enough information about it to comment on that yet, but I will.
Knowing Eric Adams the way I do, I think Eric Adams would want this fight more than he would have wanted against Andrew Cuomo.
Well, listen, I think we're going to hear more, Rev, about him saying that some people who say they need to globalize the intifada is not a bad thing, is not anti-Semitic. I think we're going to be hearing an awful lot more about that. We're going to be hearing about his economic plans, a socialist in New York. There's going to be, I think we're going to have a very competitive, interesting general obviously there needs to be, people need to learn to distinguish between people's desire for Israel to stop killing people in overwhelming numbers. I mean, when it comes to America and our involvement in Syria, when it comes to America and our involvement in Libya, when it comes to our involvement just recently with the Houthis, when it comes to our involvement in the Iran attacks, all of these, and even in the Iraq war, all of these have been based on the result of Netanyahu. So I'm not so sure that if you are against Netanyahu and you are against his overreaching of power or military desire to attack or expand or whatever, that somehow makes you anti-Semitic. I myself would consider myself a Zionist Jew because to be Zionist essentially means that you support the Israeli state of Judaism, which I do. I support the fact that that Jews have the land, their homeland in Israel, and I support that 100%. Now, whether or not I support Netanyahu's repeated over and over and over again attacks, that's something altogether different. And it starts to get to the point where at some point it's like, chill out, bud. You know what I'm saying? And it's getting now to the point where if you say that, you're anti-Semitic. And that really can't become the narrative because it's not an accurate statement. There's differences to those things and there's nuance. I want to follow up, though, on something that you've said and something we've talked about time and again. And I'll tell you, it goes all the way back to 2015 and early 2016 when Donald Trump kept coming on this program. People say, why do you keep having Donald Trump calling on your program? I said, well, we've offered it to every candidate. He's the only one that,
walks through the door and calls us. And as I've said before, Lindsey Graham called us once or twice, but we offered it, and Tim Ryan did it this past cycle, I think it was. But showing up makes the difference so many times. This guy showed up. Cuomo thought he was going to be able to coast in.
None of this is why he won. This is like delusional thinking. This is like, news reporters want to be like, it's because he was on our show. It's because he met with us. We're the ones who swayed the election. It's not because of any of that. It's because of the profound disdain that Americans have for the current administration. That's why he won.
You look at, and there was an analysis by the New York Times after the 2024 election. You look at the interviews that Donald Trump showed up for versus Kamala Harris in the time frame that she was in the race. Not even a close call. Trump shows up. Trump talks to people. I found is just as well. There are a lot of people who voted for me that said, you're too conservative. We're uncomfortable with some of your positions, but we see you, we know you, and we know when you get elected to Congress, you're going to come back and you're going to be here and you're going to fight for us, for what we need. Talk about how showing up makes a difference. You can't be a preacher in a church and show up 1 out of every 4 Sundays.
No, that's for sure. I think showing up it says to people that you really are engaged with them and you really want them to know you and they can feel you. And when you don't show up and have this rose garden strategy, when you're not one that has the rose garden, it's just gives a kind of removed feeling from people. And I think that
Cuomo thought that he would win on name alone. He really did. He thought he would win on name alone. He probably had strategists in his campaign that were like, why put you on the news? Why have you answer questions that may or may not topple you or could spread, give people meme content that will fly around the internet. And they decided to play it safe and just go, you have a name. People tend to go for a name. There's no way they're going to choose, a guy with the last name Mamdani over Cuomo. Cuomo, a very familiar Italian name in New York. Mamdani, it's like, who is this guy? Is he Muslim? This is where the towers were hit. No one's going to vote for this guy. Like, this is their strategic thinking, and it costed them big time, majorly. But, like, I love hearing the right cry about this because this is hilarious. Like,
we got to talk about the fact that New York is becoming a communist Bolshevik town.
Here we go. Oh, it's enough to make you lose your mind. 2 complete buffoons and grifters who make money selling bullshit and lies to their audience. Propagandists in every possible way. And listen to this nonsense.
It's incredible. I'm sorry. I've lived in New York State for 50 years and only recently moved to Connecticut and New York City for 17. I can't believe they've done this. How did we go from...
By the way, the insult of communist and Bolshevik. Oh, New York is becoming communist. It's Bolshevik at this point. The only time we've ever had a president in American history that everybody called a communist Bolshevik was Franklin D. Roosevelt. And he built the biggest and strongest economy in American history. The country did better under his policies for like 30 years straight than it ever did in any period of time ever. Now, is that to say that I'm for communism? No, but Franklin D. Roosevelt was no more a communist than Mamdani. But at the end of the day, this is what the right propaganda will tell you. They're communists, they're Bolshevik, they don't like capitalism. It's just ludicrous. They just want rich people to pay taxes. That's it. They want healthcare to be universal. Like every other country in the world, every other advanced nation on the planet has free healthcare that is taken out of a tax system, and many of which have better healthcare than the United States. Many of whom. I know a lot of people like to bring up Canada, bad example, but there are tons. Germany that has free healthcare, They have the best healthcare in the world. Top notch. They're like number one on the planet. And that's what these people want. They want to hold businesses and corporations accountable. But billionaires don't like that. They don't like that. So they pay people like these two shill frickin' rejects who basically get paid to go around and spread propaganda. And they pay them to convince people that anyone who's trying to hold billionaires accountable is just a communist and a Bolshevik.
Giuliani, Bloomberg, crossover de Blasio and Adams to a socialist who now is very likely to win because anybody who gets the Democratic nomination wins. Now, it's true, some people will organize against him. Some New York business leaders are very scared. Some Jews in New York are very scared that this guy who defended globalized the intifada recently on a podcast at the Dispatch is their next likely mayor. So they could potentially organize now in a way they didn't before the primary to stop him.
The idea that this is where it's like, it's so troubling that they're trying to win over a certain amount of Jews by making them afraid of the globalizing the Intifada as if it's some sort of like movement that wants to expunge Jews or something. It's like completely ridiculous.
But if you had to put money on it, you'd have to put it on this guy becoming the next mayor. What does this say about New York and our country?
Well, a lot. And I'm going to push the envelope a little bit, Megan. So you have to give me, and you can push back at any time. So I think it's very
you're in trouble.
talk.
I saw you're in trouble with Jessica Tarlov of Fox News on the internet.
Well, yeah, I'm going to say it here on air because I just I don't hide from my opinions. But yes, and you can push back and disagree, and I'll give all the proper caveats, which of course I believe in. But yes, the socialism part is very important. I mean, he has like some of the dumbest ideas imaginable, which we're going to have city-run grocery stores. Yeah, that works really well.
Bro said caveats. He said caveats. Oh my God.
In Cuba, bring back bread lines, right? Mamdani 2025. And obviously
bread lines. Oh my God, I've been hearing about these bread lines. There was going to be bread lines when Barack Obama won, right? He was the president for 8 years, never saw a bread line. There was going to be bread lines when Joe Biden won. He was president for 4 years, never saw a bread line. 12 years. 12 of the last 16 years, Democrats have been running this country. They say the same thing. Biden's a socialist. Obama's a socialist. Hillary Clinton's a socialist. Bread lines, bread lines. It's never happened, folks. More fear mongering, more nonsense.
He wants to tax the rich. He wants to take more money away from people. All that.
Ooh, he wants to tax the rich. Oh my God. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? He wants to tax the rich. What a nightmare. What is he talking about? He wants to tax the rich? I mean, it's unbelievable, man. It's unbelievable. I'm going to explain it to you guys like this. If you had a friend who said, hey, you could come stay at my house. You could come. I'll let you use my car. I'll let you crash at my house. I'll even let you eat my food. And I'll let you use all my services, everything in my internet, everything that you need in my house. All I ask is that when you succeed and you do something great, that you help me out and you throw me a bone so that, you know, I can keep these things going so that somebody else could take advantage of them someday. And then you go and you live in this man's house, you use his internet, you drive his car, you use all of his services, you do everything and you become successful. And then you go, the hell with you, bro. I ain't giving you shit. Are you a good person? Are you a decent human being if you do that? Or are you an asshole? That's what billionaires are, who used American services, who used the foundational principles of America's Constitution, who used our laws, our existing structural economic system to be able to get rich in the first place. You can't get rich in other countries like you can get rich in America. You can't. And the idea is, if you used the systems in the American structure to get rich, then you need to pay back into that system so that that system can still flourish and be healthy so that others can take advantage of those same systems and structures so that they too can become rich someday. But these billionaires want to kick the ladder over. They want to use America to climb up the ladder and get to the top and then kick over the ladder like, I ain't paying taxes. Why should I? and let all those systems that they used and that they took advantage of to become rich in the first place fall apart at the seams because they need money to function and to exist. So rich people want to use the system to get rich. The average person watching this right now, I mean, I don't know who's watching this, but I can almost guarantee that the average person watching this right now, the average person has one vehicle, maybe two, but more than likely one. Jeff Bezos has 20,000, 40,000, 60,000 trucks on the road shipping goods every day. So the question is, why are you paying for the roads and he's not? Does that make any sense? It's unbelievable, man. The crying is unbelievable. But anyways, guys, Anthony, I see you popped in. And I see that you're watching right now. I'm going to be pulling you up here in a minute to talk to you, but I want to get through my initial. I want to get through with my initial opener first, and then I'm going to bring you up to talk to you. Hold on. We're not gonna. I just got your Zoom thing. Hold on, and we'll get that squared away in a minute. So let's see something here real quick. Another thing that I want to talk about today that I found actually, you know what? If Anthony's ready, I think what we'll do is, Anthony, I'm going to go ahead and actually try to bring you up now. I'm just going to try to bring you up now. If you're ready right now. Just let's see here. It's not going to let me use my camera, but that's okay. And let me see. Hold on a minute. Guys, bear with me for a moment. You know what, Anthony, if you're watching, instead of doing a Zoom, would you mind just hopping in Discord? Because it's going to end up causing me to lose my camera. It's a whole thing. It's beyond frustrating. Hop in Discord. I will pull it up right now. We could have you on here. Move this here. Do, 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 do. I thought I'd be done my opener before he arrived, but apparently it took a little bit longer than I thought. Let me see here. Okay. Actually, you know what would even be better is, you know what we'll do that'll even be better, because it's going to continuously create a problem if we don't. I'm going to do this. Anthony. Anthony, you there? Anthony.
I know.
Try it again.
Okay. Anthony, you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, good.
I was trying to pull you in, and it was becoming a little bit of an issue with the Zoom because it's going to disconnect my camera. So it was it's like a whole thing. So I apologize for that. But how you doing? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I have lag. I had the stream actually playing, and I couldn't hear you because I was hearing two of us.
Oh, okay. That's funny. Okay. Well, I mean, you can hear me now, right? Everything's fine?
I can.
Okay. Talk some more?
Yo.
Okay.
Yo, 1, 2.
We got a good level on you. You're fine. So, couple things that I would like to ask you right off the bat, before we even get into anything. I wanted to ask you about this attack on Iran that's happening that Israel is doing, and then America, of course, helping, and whether or not this is going to cause oil and gas to skyrocket, given the circumstances. And obviously, that is something that I know you have a lot of expertise on, and I wanted to know what you thought about that.
Well, it's interesting. If you actually go back and look at the trend, so the United States uses a type of crude called West Texas Intermediate. Most people think of crude oil, they think of Brent oil, but America, we use what's called West Texas Intermediate. If you look at the prices of West Texas Intermediate the day after Iran bombed Israel, you'll see it jumped up like $14 a barrel.
Right. So lately I've been looking at it. It seems to have leveled out. Is that going to end up like? Are we going to be looking at is this going to be like over the next few months? Should we be expecting a spike? Because it seemed like it kind of leveled out in the last couple of days, but now with everything happening, should we see a spike in the next over the course of the next couple of weeks or even months?
You know, it's hard to say with the market, and especially with the upheaval in the Middle East right now. We very well could see it reach back into the $100 a barrel in oil. Things are weird. Trump will say something, and sometimes oil will spike. Sometimes he'll say something, oil will fall. It's really dependent on the market. Now, Iran was talking about blocking off one of their straits, which has like $1 billion worth of oil that flows through. If they are able to cut that off, that will decrease the amount of supply that's available overseas. Obama had actually lessened our own embargo. We had an embargo against our own oil about selling our oil overseas. So if we do that, America is going to start trying to bail out Europe again with more of their oil, which is going to leave less oil domestically and raise our prices even more. Now that there's a trickle down effect, high oil prices doesn't necessarily reflect high gasoline prices per se. However, eventually those gasoline prices will start coming up. They've been on a downward trend since Trump took office, but I don't think it's any part due to Trump. It's just the way that the market had been falling. But we could definitely see oil. We're in the 72, 73-ish range, I think is the last I seen it. But we could definitely probably expect it to go to $85 to $90 range within another month or two. And I wouldn't surprise me if we're over $100 a barrel by the end of this year.
Do you have any idea what percentage of our oil imports come from Iran?
We don't use a whole lot of Iranian oil. So that Iran's an OPEC producer. So we do use some, but not really. So the problem that we have is we don't have the refinery capabilities in the United States to completely refine all of our own oil, even though as far as oil, we are 90% or so self-sufficient. The problem is that we have to export our oil, it gets refined, and then we buy our oil back at a premium. there's other countries right now that we have American operators in, such as Venezuela, who they have a contract with Chevron, and they basically mine their oil or drill their oil out, and then they give Venezuela a little bit of their oil back, and they take the rest of it and ship it over here to be refined at some of our refineries. Chevron has the holding capacity to hold it. Problem is now they have all this oil. They can't bring it over here because the tariffs that are basically on international oil right now are making it hard for us to get international oil that Trump did. Biden actually had a clause that allowed that Venezuelan oil that was operated by Chevron to come into our country without a whole lot of extra puff and puff. But now, okay, sorry.
No, that's fine. That's interesting. Somebody just commented in the chat that gas is down to $3.17 here in Ohio. And I notice a lot of people, whenever I have a discussion or anybody has a discussion about gas and oil, they immediately jump to what the gas prices are currently today in their state. Is there like a time different? Like, what is the time differential between when prices are raised on oil? How long does it take for that price range or price raise to trickle down to where people are actually seeing it affected at the pump?
Oh, well, first of all, you're going to see diesel prices affected much sooner than gasoline prices. Diesel is kind of the market industry. That's all of our shipping, our trains, our trucks. So diesel prices are going to be affected first, and then eventually you start seeing gasoline prices affected. It's not going to be an immediate reaction unless you have some kind of like an actual World War breakout, and then we have price gouging. People are at that point just setting their own prices and price gouging, which after the last, what year was that? After 9/11, there was some price gouging. And during COVID, there was some price gouging. But there's laws in a lot of different states that do not allow for them to price gouge in that way anymore. But so the problem that we have is that our gas prices used to be a lot more related to our oil prices. However, after we had the big peak of gas prices being $4, $5, $6 average in the country, the big oil has realized, well, they can charge more for that. So the days, like I remember you do too, when we were young, like 89 cents a gallon back in New England for gasoline back when we were kids. We'll never see that again because they know that Americans will pay the more money for the gasoline. So you're looking at the increase of overhead profit for gasoline, and it's tied to oil prices, but not an immediate reflection of it. It's just whatever they think they can charge you based on what their supply is and what the demand currently is.
Right, because oil is a global commodity, whereas gas can be a national commodity. One thing I do know is that Iran supplies China with 15% of their oil. So that being said, I would imagine, I don't know, you're the expert, you actually know more about this than me. I would imagine that America gets less than that. Like we don't rely, 15% of our oil does not come from Iran like China, right? I would imagine it's less than that.
Yeah, let me do a quick deal here. Again, Iran is going to be OPEC producer. So let me see. Just a quick Google, how much oil do we get from OPEC? Will give us kind of a good percentage. I don't have the number. I don't want to misquote.
Yeah. I could look it up too. I just wasn't.
So we get about 1.34% from OPEC. Right.
So believe it or not, attacks on Iran, if there was going to be, if they wouldn't be able to punish the United States in any way, shape, or form with oil prices, because if anything, it would affect China's economy far worse than it would affect ours, is what that says to me, correct?
Correct. And also bear in mind, that's Brent crude. That is not the same kind of West Texas. That's not the same kind of oil that we have. Our oil that we have here is actually a cleaner oil than the Brent crude is. So it's easier for us to refine this oil than that oil. It's kind of like in Canada they have their tar sands, and that oil is very expensive oil to refine. It's a very dirty oil, and it's not as clean as West Texas Intermediate. And there are other places around other the United States that you can get West Texas Intermediate. It's just the standards what they call it, but it's a much more easily refined oil, and it's more it's cheaper for us here. And if you look at it, it's similar in price to Brent crude. It's not exact, but it's pretty similar to Brent crude. Brent crude typically, I think, is just a little bit more expensive because it's more difficult to refine in general.
Got you. Now, one other thing I want to have you say, because I know as I said, I would consider you an expert on the subject. For anyone who might be listening, how much does the president really have to do with the cost of gas in the United States?
Extremely little. Here's the thing: the president is in charge of Congress. He can make regulations and laws that affect the oil companies. But at the end of the day, every one of these oil companies, every time you go to the gas station, you see a Conoco, or you see a Shell, or you see wherever all those names that are on the actual gas pumps. That's the company whose oil that you're buying. Those companies are worth way more than Trump could ever dream to be worth. And they're the ones that are lobbying, and they're the ones that are telling Trump what laws that they want to pass for oil. So he has very little to say in affecting, that's going to be any president, in actual oil prices. Obama, when he passed the ability for us to sell our oil overseas, had a major influence on what the oil prices did, but he didn't directly influence it. The oil companies themselves are the ones that decided to export oil, and then we have our national reserves that the president can buy oil for our country and slightly manipulate the market a little bit by how much oil he's buying or not buying for the Federal Reserve.
So do you think that the corporate companies or businesses that own the gas that sell gas to the United States or in our country, do you think that they kind of like the fact that everyone thinks that it has to do with the president so that they can gouge people and do stuff, and they know that it'll just is it more in this situation that the corporate entities have more power over the president's approval? I mean, isn't it possible that a corporate company that sells gas in the United States could jack up prices during a president's term just to cause his polls to tank?
That is a possibility, and we're looking at tinfoil hat kind of stuff with that. But I mean, I'm not saying that stuff doesn't happen already. And absolutely, we're looking at all these corporations, depending on who's going to give them the better deals, either the Democrats or Republicans, can influence prices in such a way. But you have to bear in mind, just the gas prices alone, once we increase oil and gas prices, and then the cost of diesel goes up, which again is a bigger telltale of what our economy is, not gasoline prices, but diesel. When it costs more to ship things, that's when we start seeing things affected in the grocery stores. The prices go up in the grocery stores because now it's costing more. The shippers are paying more. The receivers, everything's costing more money just for shipping. The ships coming in, when the ships can't get diesel or heavy fuel, they use the big ships use a heavy fuel. When they can't get it because they're not refining it or they're not drilling, that's going to affect all of our markets as far as what we see, at the grocery store, or even when you try to go buy a car or a house. Everything is relative to the oil industry, unfortunately. And on top of that, almost every single thing in our homes these days is influenced by all the plastics that we have come from oil, all the silicone, every single thing you can imagine. The tar on our roads that we have is oil and gas industry. I mean,
But you would agree that corporations that sell gas have more control over the cost of gas than probably any other real thing other than maybe the cost of oil. But even you said the cost of oil doesn't even affect gas as much anymore, right?
Right. No, you're absolutely right. So these corporations are going to control that. So at the end of every fiscal year, right, back in September or so, October is when their fiscal year typically ends for all these oil and gas companies. they set what their profit margin is going to be, right? So all of their pricing for the rest of the year is going to be based on what their set profit margin is. This is why, if you go to a Shell, you might pay $2.52 for a gallon of gas, but if you go to the Chevron across the street, it's $2.87. At the end of the day, they each have their own bottom line, and they're going to charge what their bottom line is and meet their what they want to make as far as their profit margin.
By the way, just to clarify, I didn't mean to suggest that corporations would sit around and say, hey, let's raise prices to tank the polls of the president or the favorability of the president. But I do think that it is way more likely that a president and people's opinion of a president can be more affected by corporations deciding to raise prices than say that anything that the president could do that would affect the cost of gas. So is that an accurate statement?
I think that's probably pretty accurate. Yes.
Okay. That's ultimately what I was wondering. Okay. I really just, I would like to at some point, I know this was a quick one, but I really appreciate you coming on. But I would like to set up a full interview with you. I want to have an episode where we do like an hour. I want to talk to you, pick your brain about a lot of different things. So we're going to definitely set something like that up as soon as possible. But as far as tonight, I really wanted you to kind of weigh in on this because I've seen a lot of people talking about Iran and how this is going to affect gas prices. And immediately, as soon as I hear this, the first thing I think is give a call to Anthony and let's fact check that real quick.
Oh, definitely. I always enjoy talking with you, Tommy. You know that, and I maybe been doing this industry for a long time, but any topic that you want to talk about, I probably have something to say about it. So.
Oh, that I know. There's a lot of things I'd like to pick your brain about. But I'd like to be able to do it with Zoom. Unfortunately, the problem that occurred tonight was that I realized that because I had always planned that when you called, I was going to pull you in and we were going to do something. But as it turns out, Zoom will not allow me to activate the camera if it's being used by my streaming software. So I have to set it up entirely different to be able to set that up. So it's not as easy as me just being able to pull you in. That's why I had to do it over Messenger. But that being said, I'd like to plan something with you like really soon, like in the next couple of days.
Yeah, sure. I'll be off for the next week and just let me know and we'll figure it out, buddy.
All right. In the meantime, are you, I heard a voice in the background. Is that who I think it is?
She didn't say anything. I don't know what
when
voice.
When you first got on.
Oh, yeah. Allie says hi.
All right. Tell her I said hello. You guys have a good evening. Thank you, Anthony. I appreciate you coming on here and giving me the scoop on that.
No worries, buddy. We'll talk to you after a while.
Yep. Take care.
Cheers.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was Anthony Ralston. He is definitely somebody who has his finger on the pulse with gas and oil. Very qualified. He is extremely qualified to give input on that subject. I hope that if any of you had any questions about gas and oil and what's going on in Iran, that they were answered. That being said, I want to change something here really fast. And I want to get into, so Candace Owens, went on the Piers Morgan show, and man, was this interesting. So it's really crazy because Candace Owens, who's always been a hardcore MAGA supporter, hardcore Donald Trump supporter, had a lot to say about her views. And it seems like there really is now officially a civil war in MAGA. They are divided. There seems to be two different groups. There seems to be the people who are still MAGA, and then there seems to be the America First, is what they're calling themselves, the America Firsters, the America First MAGA people. And Candace Owens kind of defines herself as an America First person. So let's
let's give a listen to what she says in regard to Trump and what happened with the attack on Iran.
Allowed the people's representatives to vote on whether or not
but nobody does
it was
that.
in the American
But
people.
hang on, no president in living memory has, with almost zero exceptions, has bothered to get congressional pre-approval for military strikes.
Now, hold on, because before we get into this, he had asked her, or she had said to him that she was upset that Trump did the attack without getting congressional approval. His response was, no president in recent memory has done that. They have bombed people without congressional approval. And I really, really liked Candace Owens' reply to this because she's right. She's 100% correct.
We know that. You know that.
Yeah, we know that. And that's not okay. By the way, that's not okay.
Obama
That's
did
not
more
an argument.
strikes than anybody, right?
Yes,
I mean, Obama never asked anybody for any
I'm not an Obama
permission.
supporter. Yeah, that doesn't make it okay. By the way, like that argument, just so we're clear, saying, well, we've been doing it wrong forever, so we should just keep doing it wrong is not an argument that it's right.
I don't disagree.
Oh, man, she's exactly correct. Like the whole argument of it's okay that Trump broke the law because, hey, Obama did it too. No, Obama broke the law too. And yes, that's not okay. I don't really care if you're Democrat or Republican, guys. Let's focus. You can't bomb countries without congressional approval. You can't do it. However, in Obama's defense, and I will say this, even though I know everyone's going to cry about it because, oh, here he goes, he's going to defend. But in Obama's defense, the bombing of Libya was not a situation that was going to war. Obama did not say, we're going to bomb Libya, and if Libya responds with any sort of military action, then it's wartime, baby, and it's on like Donkey Kong. He did not do that. They knew that that was a one-strike situation and that nothing was ever going to come of it, not even a retaliation. Libya did not have any way to retaliate. Iran, on the other hand, has missiles. They have rockets. They are a country that can retaliate. They can bomb military bases. They have bombed military bases. They bombed military bases in 2020. They fully are capable. Trump bombed them and even said, now, if you even respond to the fact that we bombed you, then it's wartime. Then it's on. That is initiating war without congressional approval. Completely separate. Now, does that mean that Obama should be exempt and that what he did was not considered criminal as well? No, he shouldn't be. And as much as I have been an Obama supporter, it is officially against the law to do what he did, and he shouldn't have done it 100%. And I agree with Candace Owens that you can't argue that like it's okay because other presidents have done it. It's got to stop becoming normalized. This stuff has to stop becoming normalized because it's only getting crazier and crazier and crazier the more we allow. We cannot have it to where the president has unbelievable and unimaginable power. You're not allowed to let a president have that in a democracy. For the United States to function under the core principles of democracy and be able to have checks and balances, you cannot allow a president to have unimaginable power. And it is unimaginable power to let a president just decide, I'm going to go bomb this country. I don't need to go through Congress. And if he had gone through Congress and they represented their constituents like they're supposed to, which is you and I, the voter, at the time before this happened, there were polls that came in and it was like 90% of Americans were against America getting involved in the Iran-Israeli conflict. It was like 90% of Americans. So what is he doing? What was he doing? Nobody wanted this. He didn't represent the American people. That's the problem, and that's what Candace Owens is explaining.
I disagree with you about that.
Okay, so I disagree with Obama doing it. I disagree with Trump doing it.
Enough.
And especially when what we're talking about is what could rise to be a nuclear war, right? We should have done things the right way. And he had indicated that he was going to wait.
By the way, Iran, is an NPT country, which means that they are a part of a team of countries that have agreed never to have a nuclear bomb. However, when he came forward and gave his press release after the United States bombed their nuclear facilities, which, by the way, is a complete violation of the Geneva Convention and all international laws. But at the end of the day, he came out and he said to people, we were an NPT country, and what good did it do? What good did it do? Nobody came to defend us. Nobody came to bat for us. No, nothing. Which is, in my view, it is Iran's way of saying we're not going to do it anymore, which means they're probably going to go out and get a nuke now. And this absolutely could result in nuclear war later. Libya was never going to do that. When Obama bombed Libya, Libya has zero possibility of ever having a nuke. They have zero possibility of ever getting involved in a real serious war. And not only that, but Libya is not responsible for 15% of China's oil. Libya is not in bed with Russia and China and India and a part of the BRICS, which is like 60% of the world population. It's kind of a big deal to drop a bomb on Iran. Okay, it's not little Libya. So when you weigh these things next to each other, it's important to consider nuance. It really is important to consider nuance. Anyway, we're going to jump to something else that she said about America and Israel and their relationship with each other. This is very interesting.
In the Middle East, the fact that we have 2,000 troops stationed in Syria right now under the guise of saying that we're fighting ISIS, while at the same time we know that Bibi Netanyahu funded the al-Qaeda adjacent front because he wanted to overthrow Syria. And they, again, expand their borders, immediately take on territory and sell us absolute nonsense. We're talking about funding Hamas. Bibi Netanyahu funded Hamas. There is footage of Bibi Netanyahu saying this stuff on camera. So it's just so ridiculous to me to pretend that they're in some predicament, that they may be eradicated soon, which is why they have to keep funding all of these terrorist groups and then pretending that they're victims of terror, when in fact they are the people that are imparting it worldwide. I just think that, like I said, Generation 9/11 has grown up, and I think that our eyes are very clear here, and we recognize that our relationship with Israel has become increasingly problematic, and it always was problematic. So I'll again ask the questions, Piers. I'm asking you because we're having a conversation. Yeah. Name something positive that our Zionist AIPAC foreign policy has brought to America.
By the way, a couple things I want to say again. A Zionist just means that you believe that Jews should inhabit Israel and that should be their homeland. Okay? I'm a Zionist. There's nothing wrong with that. Zionists already got their way in 1948. The moment Israel was established, the Zionists got their way. Anything after that, like the expansion of Israel, the repeated starvation and bombing and mass murder of Gazans, and any of that type of stuff, war with Syria, war with Libya, war with Iran, none of that stuff makes you a Zionist. A Zionist is just, you believe that the Jews should occupy Israel, that is their rightful homeland. I believe that. I think most people do. I also love Jews. I am part Jew myself, and I would never be against Jews in any kind of way, under any circumstances. But, and I've said this before on previous episodes, and I'm going to say it again. Imagine if you're in a bar and your friend is with his girlfriend, and some guy comes up behind her and assaults his girlfriend, grabs her butt or something, or does something inappropriate. You are supportive. You are supportive that your friend punched that guy in the face. You're supportive of that. You're supportive of him beating him up. Why would you not be? You know what happened, right? But if 2.5 hours later, when everyone's left the bar and the club's damn near closed and the people are like, well, you guys get out of here. The cops are, have all been called and it's just a complete nightmare. Every glass in the bar has been shattered, every table broken, and your friend is still pounding and pounding and pounding this guy. He's bludgeoned half to death. He's bleeding out of every orifice. He's almost dead. At some point, it's like, my man, can we go home now? You've made your point. Can you stop throwing punches? And I think that's kind of the vast majority of how people feel around the world, is not that they're anti-Semitic or that they're anti-Israel, but it's kind of like guys, enough's enough, man. You've killed an awful lot of people. And now it's, of course,
I do know and I do recognize that a lot of those radical Islamic Muslims do not like Jews and want them wiped off the face of the earth, and that's a problem. And I definitely stand for Israel in that way, and I would never be okay with anybody destroying or trying to harm Israel. But that's not what's happening. What's happening right now is not a bunch of Islamic nations all like trying to destroy Israel. That's not what's happening in this moment. What's happening in this moment is the opposite. And this is what people are seeing. Now, obviously, there's more nuance, and this battle goes back a long time. And I'm not here to solve the Israel-Palestine conflict in one episode because there's obviously a lot of nuance. But it is okay, and it should be okay to say that America doesn't need to be involved in doing the bidding of Benjamin Netanyahu and what he decides he wants done. And that seems to be half of our foreign policy of the past 30 years.
Well, I think the positive side of, if you want an answer about that, is that America has been Israel's steadfast ally because it recognizes as a country that Israel has been under an almost unique, multifaceted threat on its border for a very long time.
And that is true. There's not a lie was spoken.
From people that want to destroy it. And you know that you may not see that as a benefit, but Israel has been very supportive to the United States in many ways, right? So why shouldn't America...
I just want something concrete that has been benefit. Like, we got better in America in this way. Just name something. Gas prices, just something that the average American can relate to.
Well, you're not going to have a correlation between Zionism and gas prices in America. Of course you're not.
No, I'm just...
She wasn't trying to suggest that there was a correlation. She's asking, what is there that you can say in any way imaginable that any American, regular, ordinary Americans in America that want to pay their rent and survive and that are trying to like just get to work, like what is the average American? Why is the average American's life made better by America interfering in Israeli wars? And the answer is there isn't anything. And Piers Morgan knows exactly what she's saying, but he doesn't want to give any sort of like, he doesn't want to feed that. He doesn't want to feed that because he himself is a part of the establishment that, I mean, I'm not even going to get into that, but you know what I'm about to say. But at the end of the day, Candace Owens is not wrong here. And I can't believe I'm agreeing with Candace Owens, but I am agreeing with Candace Owens.
Obviously, there are,
just tell me one thing that tangible benefits. What your argument here is like, well, you get a pat on the back and you can say that you helped this country, which was formed in 1948 by pretending to be refugees, if you will, and being invited into the homes of Palestinians, the horrific story
they weren't
of what happened.
To be
yeah, this is where Pierce is going to slay her.
Refugees. They were people fleeing a Holocaust.
Let's be clear. Let me.
The pretending to be refugees was... And this is the thing about Candace Owens, man. It's just like, what are you doing? Really? I mean, are you trying to deny the Holocaust or something?
Finish my statement.
What do you mean pretending to be refugees?
Let me finish my statement. When I say pretending to be refugees and being invited into the home, you would think that these people were helpless and were going to be grateful to the people that hosted them. People like Muhammad Hadid, Bella Hadid and Gigi Hadid's father, who was an infant at this time in his mother's arms. She had just given birth. They had invited.
No. You wouldn't think that the Jews were going to be grateful to the people that hosted them. They were getting their rightful place on the planet back. That's what was happening, okay? Because since King David, Jews have lived in Israel or in that part of the world. So they're not going there going, oh, thank you, guests, for letting us in your home. They're going there going, we're coming back to our rightful place. And this is where Candace Owens loses me on this, and she's not correct.
These refugees because of the goodness of their heart, and then one day they return home and their doors are locked.
See, she even used the word home.
And they are told that if you try to enter, you are going to be shot and killed. That is the reality of how Israel was established as a state. Okay, that is not a stain that you can wipe from history. Most Americans growing up actually believe what happened was that, okay, it was a little messy. That's what happens after wars. Borders get changed. But at the very least, they were given money. I mean, you've lived here for hundreds of years. Here's money for your property. No, that's not what happened. They were forced out of their homes at gunpoint.
Listen,
and it's wrong. So we get to be the nation, pat on the back. According to you, the thing that America gets, let me finish. finish. Let me finish. I'm going to let you
Let me
finish. It's your
respond.
show. We can, but let me finish. Your argument is that what we get to be is that nation that keeps supporting it as they continue to move their borders in this way. Now we're seeing that incursion into Gaza, and we are certainly going to see it by the end of this administration in the West Bank, because like I said, that is why Miriam Adelson gave Trump $100 million.
I don't think that Candace Owens is anti-Semitic for saying what she just said, but I do think she's grossly misinformed.
Look, as you know, I oppose what the Israeli government is doing now in Gaza. I oppose the expansion of settlements on the West Bank. I think all of that is completely wrong. I do think America supports Israel because it remains the only democracy in the Middle East, and that's an important...
They're not a democracy. Stop saying that, Pierce. You know better.
Well, they have elections.
It's not a democracy.
They have elections.
But who gets to vote in those elections? Do the Gazans...
Now, this is where Candace has another point. Israel is a democracy, but they also let an entire group of people who live in that country not vote. So, are they a true democracy? Was America a true democracy when we didn't allow women or black people to vote? Or did we become a much more democratic country, or a democracy? I guess a democratized country, I think is the word, when we allowed women and black people to vote. So, I mean, there is an argument there.
Get to vote in that election?
Well, the Israelis get to vote in Israel, obviously.
This is such a great conversation.
Okay, so you're basically saying America had a democracy, we had
Israel
laws
ceded
that said black Americans couldn't,
Israel,
black Americans
Israel
couldn't
moved
vote.
out. It is indisputable that Israel moved out of Gaza in 2005, and there was an election, and Hamas got elected. Right now,
Yeah,
I
and
agree.
that's because
I agree with you. I agree with
but
listen,
Bibi
hang on.
Netanyahu was on camera saying that they were going to fund Hamas into power.
Listen,
so they orchestrated
Candace,
that because if they wanted to create
Candace,
this
I haven't
illusion.
finished. I agree with you that Netanyahu wanted to cause a split between...
I really appreciate Candace's passion, but there is something to be said that, just because you could talk over people and get louder doesn't mean you're right.
Between the Palestinian Authority and Hamas, it was divide and rule. It was a catastrophically bad strategy, and it led to what happened on October the 7th over a 20-year period. There's no doubt it was a terrible thing that Netanyahu did. One of the many reasons I think he should go. But there was no doubt that the Israelis pulled out of Gaza and allowed them to have elections, and they elected Hamas, and the rest has been disastrous history.
Because the Israelis funded, because Bibi Netanyahu, they funded Hamas into power.
I don't disagree with you, but they still had elections.
So it's like we rigged an election, but look what the election results show is that they wanted to put Hamas into power. And so when we talk about who is funding these terrorists, the answer is Bibi Netanyahu. And I don't want to get into his corruption trials, but every single person watching this right now should go pursue the documentary, The Bibi Files, because it is absolutely stunning to understand.
I believe one of the reasons. I believe one of the reasons.
Let me answer the question, because you still haven't given me anything other than like you guys get a pat on the back for supporting this created nation in the Middle East. I also just like to say all of the bad things that we have gotten because of our continued relation with Israel. First and foremost, the open borders. And you can relate to this. People in the UK, they just can't seem to connect the dots.
All right.
Oh my gosh, what's happening here? But I want to say this. Okay, we don't understand where all these refugees are coming from. Oh my God, where are all these refugees coming from? Who's funding them coming over into these borders? Well, this is what you get when you keep supporting these nonstop wars, when you keep bombing where these people live. And it's
the people that have been bombed over in the Middle East are not the people that come into the United States. Statistically, that's not the people that come here. The United States, anybody that's coming here is usually coming from South America, the vast majority of them. We do not have an overwhelming number of people from the Middle East coming here because they're refugees from a country we bombed. So that's an inaccurate statement.
It's not even just a conspiracy, by the way. If you're like, oh, well
actually, you're wrong about this, because the vast majority of people coming into the UK illegally are not coming from war-torn countries in the Middle East. They're actually economic migrants.
The UK either, apparently.
Okay.
So that's not true.
Okay, but let's connect that. When you say economic migrants, are we talking about like
people who literally want to come to the UK for a better life?
And when Gaddafi was heading up Libya and the country was on the up and up and he was working with the United Nations, and then all of a sudden he warned that if you collapse Libya and turn it into a place where refugees are escaping, that this is going to be your problem, Europe. He warned that. So then it actually happened. And now we're just calling them economic migrants. We're going to pretend
I'm not
that we had
talking
nothing
about
to
people
do.
coming from Libya.
Okay, where are you speaking about?
Well, for example, I think it was last year, a third of all the people who came into the UK on the border on the small boats illegally, it turned out were young economic migrant males from Albania, which last time I checked, we hadn't invaded. So look, let me pull you back to something you said, which has caused a lot of controversy.
Oh, this is where he's about to go into a statement that Candace Owens made about military people in the United States, or people in the United States military refusing unlawful orders and allowing themselves to be dishonorably discharged.
Which is this issue of dishonorable discharge. Let's take a listen.
I do believe that if war in Iran is on the agenda, and that appears so, get dishonorably discharged. Who cares? Who cares? Why should you go die in a foreign land? You now have the benefit of 2020. You can think about those men and those women who died because they were pitched that they were serving their country because there were weapons of mass destruction, right? They were serving their country because the Taliban, they were serving their country, whatever, and these people gave up their lives. And ask yourselves, for what? And the answer to that question is for the elites. They're like toy soldiers.
Now, based on that comment, I want to say this. It's very important to distinguish these things, because if you don't, then there's a lot of things can get muddled. But the thing is that's important to understand is that if Iran were to get nuclear weapons, that is not good. Now, do we think that Iran has nuclear weapons? It's according to all intel, they do not, and they have not. Which is kind of the problem. Like, why is America getting involved if, even the intelligence agencies have told Trump and the administration flat out that there's no evidence, zero information, and this is what they do, that would tell them that Iran was building a nuclear weapon. We do have information that comes from Israel, and Netanyahu's has his intelligence agencies, and they're saying that, of course, they found they have video footage of trucks that were sort of driving off their rich uranium, their enriched uranium supply, and that they believe that they were like 80% of the way there to building a nuclear bomb, and so the question remains: well, who do you trust? Do you trust our intelligence agency? Do you trust Israeli intelligence agency? It becomes a little bit muddled. If Iran was in fact building a nuke, that's not good for anyone, including America, including the United States. And obviously, if that were happening and America needed to be one of the people that were going to prevent it from happening, then it would be important for American soldiers to be willing to die for that, obviously, because we're talking about a country that has yelled death to America, does not like American culture or values in any way, shape, or form, getting a nuke. That could become problematic. However, to Candace's point, which is basically to say that as of now, there's no evidence, at least from our intelligence committee, that has given us any evidence at all that suggests that Iran has a nuclear bomb, yet we're interfering on what it seems to be just Benjamin Netanyahu's behalf. And if we're doing that, and that's what we're doing, and that's why we're doing it, then why should an American go over there and die? And to that point, I agree with her. To that point, I agree. Because Iraq, for those of you who may have short memories, or maybe we're too young and don't know, America went into the Iraq war based on Netanyahu's intelligence as well, who told us that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. So we went in there, we murdered a whole lot of people, only to find there were no weapons of mass destruction. So to Candace's point, were there American soldiers who died for this? 100%. And, is that okay? No. Why are American soldiers dying for nothing? And there's absolutely zero argument that that really can be made to what she said. Now, again, if and look, as crappy as this is, there's no putting the toothpaste back in the tube. We bombed nuclear facilities in Iran. America did. While they were in the middle of orchestrating a peace deal, we dropped bombs on their country. So does that mean that Iran may very well say, then we're going to go out and get a nuke? Probably. Does that mean that Iran might want to get even with America? Possibly. And if that is to happen, do we need American soldiers to defend our country? 1,000%. Is it annoying that we started and provoked the war? Yeah. But are we supposed to just go, since we started it, it's like, again, with the bar fight. Imagine if you're walking down the street with your friend and your friend starts a fight with somebody, but all of a sudden a whole bunch of people jump in. Are you just going to let your friend get beat up because he started the fight? At that point, you kind of, even though he started the fight, you could yell at him later for it, but you have to defend your friend. It's kind of the same thing in America, right? It's like if we were to, even though we started it, and even though we probably shouldn't have, if this now results in Iran making threats to America and dropping bombs on American bases and killing American soldiers, then you're damn right. We need our American soldiers to be fighting it. But what I have found, what a lot of MAGA people seem to want, which kind of drives me crazy, is they seem to want American soldiers more in the streets of our cities, helping ICE deport people for no reason that are just people who've been here for 10, 15 years that are just working a job on their way to go do dishes at a restaurant. And they want the United States Marines in the streets to make sure nobody could protest against that, because that's more important to them than what? Defending against Iran if they decide to go to war with us? I mean, so understand that what Candace said, there's no argument for what she said if Iran was never getting nuclear or never close to building a nuclear weapon. Then it's a very good argument. If they were close to getting a nuclear weapon, then it's not an argument. We need American soldiers to be doing what we're doing. If they weren't trying to get a nuclear weapon, but now because of what happened, they decide to, then once again, we're going to need American soldiers to go in there. So, but we all know what she meant. And I am not one of those people who lean left that like to take everything out of context from people who supported Trump or whatever and try to shame them and make them look bad. We know what Candace Owens was saying. And to that effect, I agree with her.
When you said that, were you aware of the repercussions if people dishonorably discharged?
So just to put this into context, this is like the Q&A, live Q&A portion at the end of my show. And being facetious, but also being completely honest, that they should begin to consider, and that was somebody asking, what should we do? Like, should we leave the military because they also
do you regret
are recognizing that? No, I don't regret saying that. I don't regret.
You know the
having
repercussions
people
if you do discharge dishonorably.
Okay, well, I would imagine.
I mean, the statement, do you regret saying that? It's like, Pierce, shut the fuck up, man. Do you regret saying that? Why would anybody regret anything that they ever said if they were standing on business and they meant it? Like, what kind of stupid question is that?
That the people that are in the military who were going to, if they were going to listen to my podcast and they were going to dishonorably discharge, that they would know the consequences. So it's completely ridiculous. And again, we see this over and over again where people can't answer the broader questions. They try to suddenly peg in, well, you said this one thing. No. The broader conversation that we are having.
Candace, it's not a small thing.
No, let me finish. Let me finish.
You're basically you're encouraging U.S. servicemen and women to dishonorably discharge.
You play a clip, and I'm trying to answer it. You can't do that. You ask a question.
Well, you're trying to downplay it,
and I'm responding. No, I am. No, you're trying to upplay it. Is what
he's trying to upplay it.
The issue is. This is 100%.
This is exactly.
I'm just repeating what you said.
No, you're not. You're playing what I said, and I'm responding to it and telling you.
Piers Morgan likes ratings. And he loves to press buttons to keep people watching.
that the broader piece of that conversation, when you have troops that are now asking that question, is they are recognizing that America is in steep decline, that our military comes back and they are treated like dirt, that a lot of these...
By the way, I see that some of you have left comments. It's hard for me to look at them while I'm watching this right now, but I will get to them in a second and I will go through them if you stick with me.
Men, and we're talking about decades, white American males come back and they're told that they're racist and they're treated like crap, that they're white supremacists, that they have a different vision for this country. So why are they dying in these overseas wars for Bibi Netanyahu? Okay, and let me again try to answer that question that I asked you at the beginning, which is, what has Zionism won America?
I'm not going
what
to keep
have
coming
these
back to the
never-ending...
same thing.
Who is called anyone? See, little things about racism, and they're being called racists. It's like, oh, Jesus Christ. Who? Like one idiot college kid called him a racist, so now that's like what everyone's calling them. That's the stuff that the right does that fucking drives me nuts, and they blow that out of proportion.
No, let me finish. Why won't you let me answer that? Why won't you let me actually say what people are recognizing? You come back and there are open borders and you're told that you are racist. Okay, you come back and you're told that you are racist if you don't want open borders. Meanwhile, you're sent overseas to defend Israel's borders. It's a nonsense. And who's funding these open borders? According to Barry Weiss, and I quote, Barry Weiss said this verbatim: the Jewish connection to the refugee is not a conspiracy. That's something that we are very proud of. And she was referencing the organization HIAS, and she says it explicitly, which she said what was started by them in the 1880s, which includes immigrants that have come in like Sergey Brin. They are still the organization that is operating at our border right now, okay? That is problematic, that we have open borders while we continually and routinely are told that we have to defend somebody else's borders.
It's really funny how she's on television telling people that we have open borders as ICE is literally detaining and throwing out hundreds of thousands of people that are not even criminals, that just filed their paperwork and there was a snag or a hang up and they've been waiting years for it to go through. And they're just abducting these people with masks on. And she's over here talking about how we have open borders. So there's two things, again, being conflated. There's that. But then she is right about why would we send American soldiers over to fight for another country's borders, which makes sense. But she's tying it to a context that is just ridiculous.
Okay. And again, these never-ending wars in the Middle East at the behest of Israel. Bibi Netanyahu is the one that called for Americans to invade Iraq, Libya, Syria, Afghanistan, and now Iran. And we've done it. We're told Israel can defend itself. Okay. So, but why do we have currently 2,000 troops that are in Syria under the guise of fighting ISIS? And like I said, we know Israel themselves fund terror adjacent militants like they did to overthrow Assad.
Not a lie.
And we're done with the BS of, okay, well, they weren't really involved, Israel in Afghanistan, because even when we fight those never-ending wars, Israel wins. Everybody knows that our boys were out there in Afghanistan guarding poppy fields, okay? And do you know what happened after we allegedly, quote unquote, lost in Afghanistan? What happened to all those poppy fields, those poppy flowers that our military was guarding? Well, the opioid crisis hit America via the Sackler family, who quite literally built the School of Medicine at Tel Aviv University. So we're just done, okay? And there's no way that we're going to go backwards. We're not going to allow you guys to emotionally condition us to go, oh, well, we got to protect Israel because of the Holocaust. It is over. They're imparting a Holocaust. America would like off this crazy train.
Wowzers. She sounds like she's on the left. Just about everything that she said there, she sounds like she's on the left. Anybody disagree with that statement? Let's see here. It just looks like we have a lot of comments from Slim Midwest. I will answer. Okay, so Slim, when you say that we have no idea what the president knows, we do. We do know what the president knows because the intelligence agencies of the United States have all notified him that Iran has not been building weapons of mass destruction or any kind of nuclear weapons or whatever. He actually came right out and said he doesn't care what they said. He doesn't believe them. So we know that. Now, whether or not Israelis' intelligence community has better intelligence than us, or whether or not they are just doing
what Netanyahu tells them to tell America to try to get America to help him, that's up in the air. And but regardless of whether or not you're right or wrong for supporting it, I think that the conclusion really comes to, we just don't know, right? We just don't know if Netanyahu is doing this because he has his own agenda, or if they really do have proper intelligence that says whether or not they were getting, or that says that they were building a nuclear bomb. And so I think that without that information, it's inconclusive. We just don't have enough evidence to really know. And so with that being said, and this is the main point of what scares me, is that when I see the people like Candace Owens on the right, who are basically going off on MAGA and Donald Trump because they're not in support, like her, Tucker Carlson, several of them are not in support of helping Israel. They have a disdain for that. And then you have people on the left who have a disdain for Israel because they believe that they're committing one of the worst genocides in history, and they're starving little babies in Gaza, and so on and so forth. And so when you have these two people, both sides, coming together with an agreement that the problem is the Jews, that's not good. It's not good, because there doesn't seem to be a lot of distinguishing between Judaism and the fact that Netanyahu has agendas as a leader of a country. Those two things need to be distinguished. And on that note, guys, it was fun. Again, this is Tom Kane with Vile Maxim. If you like the video, please like the video. It helps the algorithm. I'm trying to get to 10,000 subscribers. And I posted an interview the other night last night of me interviewing very dear friend of mine, PM Lipscomb, who is a rising star Hollywood film director. Make sure you check that out. And yeah, man, just stay tuned. I'm going to be doing this every single night, and I look forward to talking to all of you again in the future.